Hi, I'm Dr. Alan Korenik. I'm the director of the Employee Assistance Program here at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. I'm also the director of the Counseling Center at TTUHSC, where we provide EAP counseling. And I'm glad for the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes to tell you about this particular resource. Ordinarily, I would give a in-person presentation, but things being what they are because of the coronavirus pandemic and the fact that here at the end of May, which is when I'm doing this recording, we're not having in-person meetings. I've prepared a PowerPoint slide and a Zoom presentation, and again, I'm glad to have this time. Let me begin by congratulating you on getting accepted into your residency program. And I hope that it's everything that you hope that it will be. At this point, I'm going to share my screen and my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so I entitled this Employee Assistance Program Resource for Managing Stress and Avoiding Burnout During Residency. I'm sure by now you've heard a lot about physician burnout. I say it's a growing concern. It's in many respects full grown. There's been a lot of research that's been done trying to figure out how come physicians burn out at the high rates that they do, but also how to address that to try to prevent that from happening. There's a definition of burnout as a syndrome that has some pretty significant symptoms or indicators, and the concern about the number of physicians that report experiencing at least one symptom of serious burnout. In 2014, large survey found that 54% of physicians were experiencing at least one of those. A similar survey in 2011, just 3 years earlier, found that 45%. So obviously, as of 2014, the trend was still going in the wrong direction. And so those consequences to physicians is really a significant concern. Some of that research has also found that burnout does not happen when one becomes a physician in private practice or perhaps in a healthcare setting, but already in medical school, kind of the pipeline for it leads to burnout, begins to occur there. I think residency is an important time for all of you, not just in terms of your professional development as a healthcare professional, but in terms of your wellness, because I think that residency is the time when a lot of physicians will adopt lifestyles and behaviors that they'll carry forward throughout their medical career. And so it's important that we're doing things to promote our emotional wellness and well-being. Burnout has been seen as a progressive condition that progresses through 3 stages. The first of those stages we call stress arousal, and that's where we begin to more persistently, frequently experience those symptoms, physical, emotional, cognitive, behavioral, that are the kinds of things that we experience when we get stressed. If we're not able to manage that, then we may slide into stage 2, which is called energy conservation, because now our energy reserves are depleted. The needle is beginning to move toward empty as far as energy. And so we start doing things to try to conserve our energy. We procrastinate, we put things off. Maybe we take shortcuts. So our charting may become problematic in terms of the quality of our charting, or perhaps the timeliness of our charting. We may find ourselves beginning to skip meetings and things of that kind that require some energy to either present or to listen and assimilate, the information. We may begin to withdraw from other people. We may become cynical or resentful. In terms of resentment, we may start saying no to people and things, responsibilities. Setting boundaries can be good. So sometimes we need to say no to certain things that are not priorities. But if we're doing it with resentment or out of resentment, then that can be really problematic for us. And then by the time we get to stage 3, now we're experiencing things that we typically associate with being burned out. So chronic depression, chronic fatigue, perhaps some suicidal ideation. Many things can contribute to burnout. One of the things that contributes are certain myths that physicians hold. I've just got a couple of those here. Physicians help those in need. They don't have needs. A second one is that if a physician needs to talk to a counselor, then they're not well suited for the profession. They're not strong enough. They're not resilient enough. Some people see talking to a counselor as a sign of weakness rather than strength. I think it's a sign of wisdom to say, okay, you know, I'm not doing as well as I need to be doing. Let me go talk to someone. Let me use them as a sounding board. Let me see if maybe there's some things that I could add to my life, to my repertoire of wellness strategies. So I see it as a, you know, as a very good thing. The other thing is having ineffective strategies for managing stress. I call those our default strategy. Those are the things that we typically do without really thinking about it. Maybe it's things that have worked fine for us in the past, but are they still working well for us? Some of that research on physician burnout found that, as it says here, despite better access to health care and a better understanding of, you know, how important speaking to a healthcare professional can be, medical students and residents are more likely to cope by resorting to dysfunctional behaviors, such as alcohol use, misusing and abusing drugs, perhaps isolating themselves, using denial or minimization as defenses to, you know, to protect themselves and the image they have of themselves. And obviously those kinds of behaviors can have serious personal and professional consequences. Although we oftentimes talk about the downside of stress when it's not managed well, stress can be beneficial. This particular model shows that the relationship between stress and performance is a curvilinear line, such that if our stress is too low or too high, our performance will suffer. But if we can manage it and keep it in that mid-range, then that's where our performance is optimal. I want to talk a little bit about the window of tolerance, because it's a real important concept in psychological, emotional wellness. So the window of tolerance there in the middle of the screen is that zone where things feel good. We're reasonably calm. We may be experiencing some stress, but the stress feels manageable. And we understand that that stress may be because we're growing and we're developing and we're accepting new challenges, and those challenges can be exciting and stimulating for us. But stress and trauma, as it says there, can shrink that window of tolerance, and we can find ourselves outside of our window of tolerance in one of those two yellow zones where we're beginning to feel emotionally dysregulated. There are things that we can do to keep our window of tolerance sufficiently wide. This particular line says that, you know, our experiences fluctuate. How we're feeling about things at any given point in time can also fluctuate. Sometimes the fluctuations are within our window of tolerance, and so they feel manageable, and we don't get too concerned about them. But sometimes either cumulative stress or or maybe trauma can begin to cause those waves to become such that we find ourselves getting out of our window of tolerance into one of those dysregulated zones. And we may be moving up the model toward hyperarousal. So now we're beginning to feel agitated, irritated, overwhelmed, maybe a little panicky, okay? Or maybe moving down toward hypoarousal, and we're beginning to shut down. We're beginning to feel disconnected or numb. If we end up in one of those red zones, then we're really in a not good place at all. And that begins to affect us behaviorally. It begins to affect our ability to process information, to make good decisions, and those kinds of things. So, so clearly, if we're outside of our window of tolerance, for whatever reason, we want to try to do things that will help us to get back into it. When we're emotionally dysregulated in those yellow zones, or perhaps moving into those red zones on the previous slide, we also call that being emotionally flooded. And when that happens, we may drift toward things becoming kind of chaotic and disorganized in our lives. Our thoughts are disorganized, our behavior, we're kind of getting out of our routines, or we may become really rigid and inflexible. We may not be very good collaborators. People may begin to perceive us as being a difficult person rather than a team player. So staying emotionally regulated, staying in our window of tolerance, returning to our window of tolerance if we begin to slide out of it is really important. And two things that we need to do in that regard are, one, to use effective stress management strategies and tools. And secondly, to be able to identify and utilize what are called regulating and co-regulating resources. The regulating resources are those personal resources that we have, that we've developed over time, or that we can maybe develop at this present time. The co-regulating resources are those things that we can do with others in our personal life, or perhaps in our professional settings, to help us become regulated. So being effective teams, for example, those are co-regulating resources. It's not enough just to identify those resources, we also have to utilize them. I had a professor in my master's program who said, insight plus 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee. That was back in the early 90s when maybe you could get a cup of coffee for 50 cents. Good luck trying to find one now. But his point was that insight alone was not sufficient for us to be able to stay emotionally regulated and well. We have to have insight plus practice, insight plus intentionality, insight plus utilizing the things that we know. So I've identified 3 ways to effectively manage stress. First of all, we need to manage ourselves. We're the human being that's being stressed. So all of these things here, in that section are things that we know that we need to eat right, regular meals, balanced meals. You have to have good nutrition. You have to have good fuel for your vehicles. We have to have good fuel for our bodies. Exercise is extremely important. Sometimes that's the thing that people feel like they don't have the time or the energy to do. And so then there's diminishing returns on eliminating exercise from our lives. We do need adequate rest. When we're getting enough rest, then we're able to make those important neural connections that have to do with learning and making good decisions. When we're not getting adequate rest, then our body produces more cortisol, which is toxic to the brain and very harmful to our ability to continue to grow and develop, particularly professionally. Relaxation and mindfulness, we're hearing more and more about how important those things are. Secondly, manage the amount of stress in our life. Obviously, going into a residency program, there's going to be more demands on your time and your energy, but trying to be wiser about our priorities, about where we distribute our resources of time and energy is really important. And then thirdly, managing our reaction or our responses to stressors. A big part of that is being aware of our self-talk and trying to keep our self-talk positive. There's a link there at the bottom. It's a YouTube video. It's entitled "The Single Most Important Thing You Can Do to Manage Your Stress." And the presenter is a family medicine doctor from Canada by the name of Dr. Mike Evans. And he's the one who narrates, who tells, provides the information. There's also an illustrator who does a really, really nice job of illustrating the important points that Dr. Evans is making. It's only about 11 minutes in length, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. Okay, well, let me talk a little bit about the Employee Assistance Program. What we provide is free and confidential counseling. This is an employee benefit that's provided by TTUHSC. We provide those services here at the Counseling Center, and all of our counselors are licensed by the state of Texas. One of the nice things about working with a licensed counselor is that there are state laws that protect your confidentiality as a client utilizing these services. And because we're licensed, that means we've done everything necessary to be licensed by the state. And there's several ways that we can benefit you through our counseling services. Let me say a little bit more about confidentiality, because I think that's extremely, extremely important. And maybe the number one reason why a person may be reticent to use an EAP provided by their employers, they may be concerned about confidentiality, and will this get somehow back to my supervisor, my residency program, my department. And the answer to that is no. When people come to us and receive our services, that doesn't get reported to anyone. It can't be, unless, as it says there, unless there is a disclosure on the part of a client that is required by law or by a court order, then we have to. But other than that, EAP counseling is strictly confidential. I want you to know also that our EAP counseling records are not stored with any other medical records here at TTUHSC. We don't identify our clients using their TTUHSC R number or using a medical record number. Also extremely important, on the licensing application for residents and fellows, you will not have to disclose that you receive counseling through the Employee Assistance Program. There are some mental health questions on the application, but those concern substance use disorders and major psychiatric disorders like major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. But if you're just coming to the Employee Assistance Program, to our counseling center, because you want to better manage the stress in your life, or maybe because you want to be able to communicate more effectively with the people in your life, that's not something that you have to report on the licensing application. So your EAP benefits, we provide brief counseling services, and these are available to you, to your spouse or partner, also to any children that you have under the age of 18 or are still in high school. We do individual counseling. We also do family and couple counseling. The university provides 6 counseling sessions per fiscal year. Now, our fiscal year is September 1 to August 31. So if you want to utilize our services now, you actually have 6 sessions available to you between now and the end of August. And then beginning September the 1st, you'll have 6 sessions for that next 12-month period, which is our fiscal year. We're not set up to do long-term counseling. We don't take any insurance or private pay here at the Counseling Center. So if you need longer-term counseling, then we're going to have to give you a referral, and you'll be responsible for that provider's fees. We have daytime and we have evening appointments available. The daytime Monday through Friday, the evening Monday through Thursday. And again, those services are provided here at the Counseling Center at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. To make an appointment, there's the phone number you can call. You can also email us at counselingcenter@ttuhsc.edu. But I will tell you that if you email us, our receptionist will need to email you back and ask for a good number and time to give you a call, because we're going to need to get some information from you to get you set up with a counselor. Our phone numbers also serve as a 24-hour crisis line in case there's a traumatic or extremely stressful event that occurs on a weekend or a holiday or after hours. We always have one of our counselors on call to begin providing you with assistance and support. We also have some important EAP resources on our counseling website. And that web address, as you can see there, is ttuhsc.edu/counseling. I mentioned that one video by Dr. Mike Evans. That video is on our website along with some other videos. We have lots of information there, and some of that information is about some apps that you can download onto your smartphone to enhance your emotional wellness. There are some mindfulness resources that are there, some mindfulness exercises that you can access and utilize. We have some PowerPoint presentations that you can take a look at that has important information. We have a lot of links on our website to various resources. We've actually greatly increased our number of resources because of the current pandemic. And then we have some resources on our website as well that, that are for parents with children. What I'd like to do at this time is just take a few minutes to take you to our website and show you how you can access some of those resources. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint. That's actually the last slide that I have. And instead, I'm going to share my screen and take you to our website. So you should be able to see the home page of our website, the Counseling Center at TTUHSC. On our home page, if you scroll down to the bottom, there is the information for making an appointment. But if you go back up to the top, we have this link to our resource page, Resources for Managing Stress and Anxiety. I'm going to click on that, and that, again, takes you to our resource page. And we have three categories of resources. We have some resources that have been identified by our therapists, our counselors here on our Counseling Center staff. These are resources that they often will recommend to the clients with whom they work. Here's one of those PowerPoint presentations. You'll recognize this slide talking about the window of tolerance. If you scroll down a little further, there are these apps, and one of those that is utilized by a lot of people is called Headspace. You may be familiar with it, and it's actually free for physicians right now. Down here, you'll see TAO. TAO is a resource that we have purchased for our TTUHSC students, medical students, nursing students, and the like. But right now, during this pandemic, TAO has made a lot of their resources free to the public. And so if you click on that, it takes you to this particular page. There's a video here that's a little less than 10 minutes in length that has some really good information. You may want to take a look at that. And then below it, if you click on English, since I'm assuming that for most of you, English is a language with which you are fluent, then what it will do is it will take you to all of these exercises. There must be a dozen or so exercises that have to do with mindfulness. Some of them have to do with managing chronic pain. So if that's something that you're challenged by, there's some videos here that can help you in that regard. But anyway, you can just scroll through this list of resources here And you know, there's some on deep breathing, which is a really effective way to be able to relax, to activate the parasympathetic branch of our autonomic nervous system, the rest and digest branch, which you're no doubt familiar with. But anyway, just wanted to make you aware of those things. And then if you continue to scroll down this page of our resources and get a little bit further down, there's some recommended reading, some stuff that's really good that we again recommend to our clients. And then down here, we have some more resources. Videos, we have some marriage resources that are really good, grief resources. There's some resources on enhancing your sleep and some other things that are there. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that screen. And again, I want to congratulate you on getting accepted into your residency program. I want you to know that the Employee Assistance Program is here for you at any time that you want to utilize our services, our resources, whether through our website or by meeting with one of our counselors for free and confidential counseling. Again, I wish you well in your program, and I hope that it's everything that you hope that it will be. Thank you. Bye.